the areas that are of concern to the committee and to, of course, members of the public. The procurement of coal has really proved to be a problem area at Eskom. And I think Eskom themselves, when they presented to the committee before, they indicated that the quality of coal that was delivered is really substandard, and other related irregular findings relating to the procurement and transportation of coal. There's also issues with the procurement of diesel, which is also a very, very key procurement area for Eskom. Well, we also looked at the appointments of and payments of McKinsey, Trillion, and Regiment. And these are the areas that where now we find a link to what the Zondo Commission has investigated and came out with findings. Because these companies, are involved in various state institutions, and they have been found wanting in similar manner. We've found that their activities are also in Transnet, are also in SAA. So that gives a picture that was painted by the Zondo Commission in terms of the role that they played in this concept called state capture. We also looked at the maladministration in the affairs of Eskom and the non-performance by service providers in relation to various power stations, including Medupi Power Station, Kusile, and Ingula. We also looked at the high-voltage transmission projects at Medupi, Kusile, and Ingula. We also looked at the various areas of conflict of interest. We've reported before to the committee that there's really endemic conflict of interest of employees either failing to declare their interest in other businesses doing business with Eskom, and that we have said serves as a breeding ground for the maladministration, malpractice, and corruption that we are seeing at Eskom. The next one, it's the Proclamation R3 of 2020, also looking at the contracting and procurement of cloud computing services and software licenses from the company called SAP. We also looked at engineering and project management consulting services in respect of a contract relating to Majuba Power Station and Matla Power Station. The next slide, just for the record, it's Proclamation R97 of 2022. This is the one that was issued last year after we have received further allegations or found further irregularities relating to other power stations, and we then approached the President to amend the proclamation, and it was accordingly amended. The dates of all the investigations contemplated in the previous proclamation R11 of 2018 were extended from January 2003 to December 2022. So the investigation will now continue and cover that period. In terms of the amended proclamation, we'll also look at contracting for or procurement of goods, works, and services by Eskom at Kusile, Medupi, Kendal, Matla, Duva, Anot, Tutuka, and Grootvlei power stations. So the power stations are expanded in terms of the scope of the investigations. We will also look at what occurred at head office of Eskom, situated in Megawatt, in terms of the irregularities that were committed there. There's also another contract, information technology now. This is the one relating to the company called Oracle. And there's also now a mandate to investigate oil supply contracts. This is also another big area where Eskom is really losing money and some of the corruption happening in that area. We thought we would give this background. We know the focus today is really around the report that we read, but this serves really as a background. So, given the investigations that we have done thus far, we thought it appropriate as well just to give the key outcomes which were covered in the presentations before. But just a summary of the key outcomes is that up to today, we've got civil matters before the courts. Some will be going to the special tribunal. By the way, with your permission and really apologies that all of the members of SIU in the room have appeared before, but I need to introduce the one who has really never attended with us, but is familiar to this house, is Advocate Vanara. He's sitting at the back. He is the Chief Legal Counsel appointed at SIU. So he started from the 1st of August. So all these civil litigation matters will now be instituted under his guidance. We are really pleased to have him on board. The value of the contracts in respect of which all these matters are before court, you can see the staggering value of all those contracts that we have found. It's 7.9 billion of the contracts that are at court. And of course, we institute these civil proceedings with the purpose of setting aside these contracts and seeking to recover the monies that Eskom may have lost. And that recovery is ordered in terms of what the courts call just and equitable orders, which results in the recovery. Some of them we have already reported to the committee. The actual recoveries is 1.5 billion, but to date there are those contracts that I referred to above that have been set aside, and the recovery will now follow following that set aside of the contracts. The values of the contracts that have been set aside to date is 10.2 billion. So following the setting aside of the contract, then the process follows of the recoveries. The disciplinary or matters referred for disciplinary action by Eskom is quite a high number, which we reported before, and this includes those employees who failed to declare or conduct business with Eskom, and that's the number as it stands is about 5,617, and we work together with Eskom to ensure that the disciplinary hearings are implemented. Honourable Chair and honourable members, as part of our investigations, of course, the law requires us, when we find evidence pointing to criminal activities, which we have found, and we'll really come back to that, then we refer that evidence to NPA and, of course, continue to work with the DPCI to ensure that those who are found to have committed crimes at Eskom are really arrested. Honourable members, in relation to the referrals for criminal action, and the investigations are continuing, and I'm sure my colleagues from the South African police will report. But we were pleased this morning to see the highlights from the media that energy experts have lauded the arrest of 9 people at the Kusile power station for coal theft and fraud. And this is after 8 weighbridge operators employed by Eskom at Rotec Industries and a coal truck driver were arrested. last Thursday. This is really pleasing and really just indicating that the investigations, the criminal investigations, are bearing fruit, and we really want to see that consequence management carried through, conviction and sentences. There's also administrative referrals that we do in various instances. You could refer to other authorities like SARS, blacklisting of entities and individual directors. Of course, there's also other referrals to CIDB, just to mention a few. To date, we've prepared an interim report to the President. Before I go into now the report that we have gone through, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members, we have said it before, that there is a clear organised nature of crime and corruption being committed at Eskom, and the investigation is ongoing. Some of these arrests are a clear indication of that. So the modus operandi that so far we have seen as evidence presents is that there has been quite an endemic collusion between Eskom officials and private companies and private individuals, and that will continue, of course, to be investigated. We contribute to that. There has been a clear manipulation of business processes, including way bridges. I had the opportunity, just so that we can look at various sources, including reading the book written by the former CEO. He clearly also articulates that the manipulation of way bridges is really one of the serious problems in Eskom. And the way bridge really is there to ensure that delivery is accurately captured and that the delivery is accurately delivered. But the manipulation of these way bridges ends up with Eskom either not getting delivery at all and losing a lot of capital. There's fictitious orders and fictitious deliveries that we have come across, as we indicated, poor quality of coal or no coal delivered at all. There's a theft of fuel, which will now, based on the amended proclamation, we will continue to investigate. The level of maladministration and malpractice really needs pointing out and being addressed. Now, that really being the background and the findings, we go now into the report that we reported to the committee that we have received before, and the allegations which were previously made by the Group CEO, former Group CEO of Eskom. As we indicate that the allegations made by the former CEO of Eskom, we stated and we're on record that those allegations were never reported to SIU. After the publication of the interview by the GCEO, as we indicated before, we made several contacts to no avail. We continuously engaged with officials from Eskom in order to scope the new matters requiring further investigation. That is during our investigations. So those allegations, we became first aware of their existence and the existence of the so-called intelligence report on the morning before the former GCEO was due to appear at Scopa, and that was the 26th of April 23. We immediately requested a copy of the report, which today it's common cause that we have received and went through it. We are of the view that the GCEO was under obligation to report those allegations, and he failed to do so. The next slide is, as part of our stakeholder management and engagement, as part of our investigations, we do engage on an ongoing basis with Eskom management, in particular the CEO, and we provided monthly reports on the status of the investigations. Now, as part of our continuous engagement with Eskom, one of the matters that we regularly discussed were the new areas requiring investigation. And the GCEO, or former GCEO himself, has referred new matters to us for investigation, and those became even part of the amendment of the proclamation. So we are of the view, really, that in that context, there was great opportunity for him to have reported these matters to us. If we proceed, we have gone through the report that we received from the Fivers company, as we said. So we have confirmed that the private investigating company that compiled the report indeed was George Fivers Forensic and Risk Company. We did, of course, request the copy, and we were given the copy by the company. The report is quite bulky, and it took us quite a while to go through it. Now, the information consisted of the following aspects as we read it. It's about 348 agent reports, 13 monthly analysis reports, 10 pre-read reports, and there's some diagrams that were really that we considered. Now, upon assessment of these reports, we have divided the information into about 54 broad themes that feature across the reports. All 54 themes contain allegations of a criminal nature, which we have indicated that although we do not really actively investigate, they are investigated by the DPCI, of course. We work closely with them. Now, of the 54 themes, 22 themes contain allegations that were of the view fall within the mandate of the SIU. The next slide. The SIU conducted interviews and collected information from Mr. George Fivers himself, and we've also went to interview, the team went to interview Ms. Busisiwe Mavuso from the BLSA. And both parties have really cooperated with SIU and provided information that we have requested. Now, we also obtained a copy of the contract between the company, the private investigation company, and the BLSA, which was concluded on the 28th of January 2022. And the scope of the contract really is briefly captured as follows. The service provider shall provide the following services: a specialized risk and vulnerability assessment to be provided by the 30th of June 2022, focused on the identification of imminent, immediate, and future threat or risk factors that have the potential to disrupt and or to destabilize the day-to-day power supply to South African households, commerce, and industry. We have confirmed that there are no other parties to this contract, including that Eskom is not a party to the contract, which is really an anomaly for us, that it's a contract that investigated, amongst others, the affairs of Eskom, but Eskom is not a party to this contract, and we'll come back to that. The contract we indicated was a period of 6 months, ending the 30th of June 2023, with an option to be extended. We have learned that the BLSA did not extend this contract. The value of the contract we have established was about 17.1 million, excluding VAT. A closeout report was issued in terms of our discovery to BLSA in August of 2023. The next slide. Now, according to Mr. Fivers, the private individuals and businesses funded the investigations beyond 30th June of 2022. The presentation that circulated may be reading 2023, but we've corrected is 30 June 2022, because that was the end of the contract. But some private funders, we are informed, funded the investigations beyond that end period. However, Mr. Fivers did not disclose the private funders and claimed confidentiality. Mr. Fivers informed the SIU investigating team that as far as he knew, the former CEO approached private funders. And we have seen that this is confirmed also in his book, where he says he went out and raised funds for this investigation. He's very elaborate on the chapters in this book that deals with this area in terms of how he went about raising funds. The investigating team interviewed Ms. Mabuso of BLSA. She informed the SIU that she did not know the identity of the private funders. However, she was aware that the former GCEO was approaching private funders. Through the engagement with Eskom and Mr. Fivers, we established that the Fivers company is not on the vendors of Eskom, sorry. The SIU has also independently verified this. Of course, that is a point to note. Through the engagements with the Eskom in this regard, we have established that the Eskom did not approve this investigation. So the accounting authority, being the Eskom board, did not authorize the investigation. It's a very important governance issue and really points to a measure of maladministration, and that, to our view, as far as investigations were done by this private company into the affairs of Eskom, it was unauthorized, and we come back to that. And we distinguish between the unauthorized nature of the investigation and the usefulness or otherwise of the contents of the investigation report. And we'll come back to that part. When we appeared at Scopa, we raised a few questions, and we now have offered some of the responses to the questions that we have raised, which really required answers from the investigation that we conducted. The issue of the authorization of the investigation, which we raised before, who authorized the appointment of the private investigating company that the CEO referred to, we have since established now that it was appointed by BLSA as far as the contract shows, and that we find that is also indicated in the book of the former CEO. Now, we indicated and questioned why would Eskom appoint private investigating company when the allegations could have been referred to the SIU or to the DPCI or State Security Agency in as far as it needed to gather intelligence. We could not really find why would the GCEO not have reported this to law enforcement agencies. And to that extent, the intent is really was really for him to assist with the investigation of the maladministration and the corruption, but we are of the view that the manner in which he went about was not consistent with his office, and without informing the board, the SIU, DPCI, SAPS, and the Executive Authority, this, on the governance side, really is maladministration on his part. Despite, as he indicates in his book, despite the good intent and so on. And again, that goes on to the usefulness of the report, which we'll come back to. The other question was whether the report of the private investigating company was handed to Eskom or to the accounting authority. It is common cause now, and the board reported before that they never received the report. The acting CEO has since approached SIU to request a copy of the report. We will still revert to him in that regard. If the report was presented to the accounting authority, well, at that time we were saying we granted access to the report, but it's common cause now that the accounting authority never received the report. How was the private investigating company paid by Eskom? Our investigation to date indicates, and even in his report, that Eskom did not pay for the investigation. A portion of the funds came from BLSA, and the balance unknown came from unknown private funders. We wanted to know if the investigation report was paid by third parties, then who are these third parties? It is common cause now that, yes, it was paid by third parties, but the third parties were not disclosed in full. Whether the payment by Eskom to a private investigating company was budgeted, of course, at this stage, is common cause Eskom did not pay. Whether the outcome of the private investigating company investigation has been acted upon, if so, how is it acted upon and by whom? And this, again, as I indicate, it hinges on the one part being the maladministration, not informing the board, not acting really as expected by the office of the CEO. The other really question is the usefulness or otherwise of the report. So we are aware at this stage, having read through the report, and we'll come back to that, most of the other aspects of report are already been acted upon by SIU and by the DPCI. In some of the contracts which we will indicate. Now, at that time when we appeared, there were indications that the report could have been leaked. There are indications that this report could have been leaked from the inside of the investigating team, but of course that needs to be verified. But this is really our indication up to now. Of course, it was leaked even before it was handed to any one of us. So it could only have been, if that's the inferential view, the inference to be drawn. Now, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members, having gone through the report, we have come to some preliminary findings. And as we say, these findings are preliminary and will be confirmed once the SIU has obtained either further investigation or guidance of legal counsel, and these findings are not limited to the ones recorded. We have said it is our view that the former CEO had no authorization from the accounting authority to undertake this nature of investigation, investigating, amongst others, the affairs of Eskom. So that's the authorization part, as expected, of the CEO. That we can tick clearly that he was not authorized. It appears that the investigation was not authorized, and as unauthorized as it is, we are saying, what would the evidentiary status of its contents be? The reports are disclaimed as intelligence that requires further investigation. And to that extent, reading again in his book, of course, which still needs to be verified through focused investigation, he stated in so many ways that he was really gathering intelligence, and which is the aspect which we questioned. It does appear, even from reading his book, that he says he had distrust of the law enforcement agencies. But in his office, as a CEO, it was really incumbent for him to raise the distrust appropriately to the appropriate level, just so that his distrust is attended to. But he went on and did and commissioned a parallel investigation, parallel to the ones conducted by the law enforcement agencies. And that is really the part which we are saying he really should have dealt with differently. And we'll come back to some of our views there. Right, as we say, the investigations was unauthorized, especially in view of the parties to the contract. The parties to the contract is the forensic company and BLSA. And of course, the scope that we quoted of the investigation, it doesn't mention Eskom, right? But fundamentally, it also investigated the affairs of Eskom. It does say investigating the day-to-day availability of power and all of that. So the extent to which it investigated and got information related to Eskom to us that's problematic. Of course, we could not establish the procurement that was followed, but we all know now that it was a private arrangement. Consideration should be given to holding the GCEO to account. And this is an interesting question that we have, and it becomes a legal question as he's no longer employed by Eskom. And in this regard, we have said we will consider the options that are available together with the board and advise accordingly. We have read since that the former GCEO has been appointed in one of the universities in the USA. Should the nature of the action required warrant it, it would be warranted that we reach out, and that is based on the legal assessment of the action required. We will have to formally reach out to wherever he is so that action can be taken. Any action against the investigating company is again a question which we will provide the answer to, because we're saying they should know, or alternatively reasonably ought to have known, that they cannot conduct investigation in a state institution without the necessary authority. We will consider the nature of the action to be recommended, and again here in conjunction with the board, and advise accordingly. Now, again, the action relating to BLSA, as we similarly say, they should also know that an investigation cannot be conducted in a state institution without the authority. Other Eskom employees, which we have found that, or which are said to have cooperated with this unauthorized investigation and provided information and support to the investigation, will be identified, and any appropriate action would be recommended. We have provided what we view as the way forward. We are aware that our colleagues in the DPCI also have the report. We've communicated with the DPCI, and there is a joint effort as we move forward to ensure that there is a coordinated and collaborated investigation to bring out the action that are supported by evidence in that regard. We have already held discussions with the DPCI's Serious Corruption Cases Office, as well as the provincial head of DPCI in Mpumalanga, with a view to establishing joint operations. The strategy to combine efforts, as we say, it's really that it's just our view that it shouldn't be seen as a direction by the GFFR report, but discussions were already underway between the financial sector and the law enforcement agencies. We have, as SIU, engaged with the FIC as well, and can confirm that the tactical operational team has been established. This team will operate under the provisions of the South African Anti-Money Laundering Task Force. The acronym is SAMLIT, which is a private-public partnership initiative to fight money laundering. And the first meeting was held on the 6th of September 2023, and the first cases have been prioritized and investigations have commenced. So as the Honourable Committee can see, that where there's collaboration with private sector and private sector companies is within a specified collaboration framework with the state and state institutions and law enforcement agencies. Not in a manner in which it was done, because we believe that it's really inconsistent with the collaboration that's required. Now, the idea of the team as well was well received, and major banks have already come on board to collaborate, and we are seeing the results of that. As we indicated towards the end of the presentation now, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members, matters under investigation by the SIU linked to what has been reported in this private report relate to all those power stations that are listed: Kusile, Medupi, Matla, Kendal, Arnold, Tutuka, Duva, and Grootfontein. There's a mention of these power stations in the context of the criminal investigations that were done by these private companies, and we all know, well, at least between us and the law enforcement agencies, we know that investigations are underway in this regard, and hence the rationale for quoting the arrests that were done on Thursday. We will continue to investigate. We have found that these companies were awarded to these contracts were awarded to 7 companies, some with links to each other, with common actors, and that the companies are active across power stations. That is an indication of the collusion that we have seen. And as the report says, the cartel nature of the criminal enterprise that is attendant at Eskom. And at this stage, we know that part is being investigated. There was a question raised previously in terms of names being referred to or not referred to in the report, including a question that was raised whether there are, I think the way it was put, whether there are politicians or senior politicians. Thank you, Honourable. The questions was whether there were senior politicians mentioned and so on, right? In going through the report, there are names mentioned in the report, but of course at this stage we would like to allow the investigations to unfold before we undergo a legal risk of mentioning the names before the investigations is thoroughly completed and evidence thoroughly collected and there is a finding and appropriately processed. And that part, the DPCI, I'm sure, will, in conjunction, in cooperation with us, will ultimately conclude the investigations. And where appropriate, the names based on the legal basis will be made known. As part of the next steps, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members, we identified, as SIU, identified 50 additional entities mentioned in this report reports that are vendors to Eskom, information relating to contracts awarded to these entities have been requested. Once the information has been requested and received, the SIU will develop a database wherein certain patterns will emerge relating to this, the cartel nature, which we will input into the criminal investigation, and the collusion and the continued prejudice to Eskom. And the following information will form part of the data record: what goods or services are being procured, and the location of the power stations, at what price are the goods services being procured, what procurement strategy has been used, emergency, single source, quotation or open tender, who are the Eskom employees involved, who are the suppliers and when they were registered as vendors, who are the common actors in the companies and Eskom. So we will seek to terminate existing contracts unlawfully awarded and seek to recover the monies that Eskom would have lost. The SIU will consider the litigation on closed-out contract and seek just and equitable remedy from the companies concerned. As we said, the SIU will work in collaboration with the NPA, DPCI, and we add AFU to ensure that the referrals that are done, where evidence points to criminal action, we would refer, and that the real-time and swift action is taken without compromising the integrity of the evidence gathered. We did raise the question, as we were going through this report, that we found that it was unauthorized in that sense, in the strict legal sense. But again, the question also is the usefulness of the report and the contents thereof. The report cannot be ignored because it has information that can point to investigations and areas that require investigation. That is clear. From where we sit, the unauthorized nature of it has to be dealt with separately, and the usefulness of the report in as far as enhancing or enabling the investigation has to be treated separately. And we have seen that it does contain information that can be useful. Honourable Chair, we haven't really said much about this last item, and the team has really looked at that, but we put it here so that we can confirm to the Honourable Committee that we are investigating this Fidelity contract. I think its value was reported as about 500 million. This contract is the subject of the investigation. At this stage, we would like to really confirm that we have commenced with the investigation into this contract, and we are of the view that the investigation will not be limited to what we call FSC, which is the Fidelity Security Contract, and therefore the SIU is casting its net wider than just this one contract. So we've requested information related to this contract, and we've commenced with the analysis. So we will also investigate and interview those people that have been identified, and there's a person called Advocate Pillay that we will also engage with. So the investigation is ongoing. We will report to the Honourable Committee on the findings that we make on this contract as well. That is the end of our presentation. We once more appreciate the opportunity, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Advocate, for your detailed report on matters which have been referred to the SIU on our last meeting that we had on the matter. It's clear through that report that there are a number of things that need to be followed through to authenticate some elements which are critical for the establishment of either criminality and matters which ought to be answered around governance-related matters. Nevertheless, you're working together with DPCI, which I would give to General Libya for his part of the element of the report. Over to you, General.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Good morning to the honorable members, the colleagues, the National Commissioner, the head of the SIU, and all the other parties present. From the DPCI, I'm accompanied by the component head of serious commercial crime, which is Major General Maginya, sitting on my left. Chairperson, we have got, we prepared a presentation which I think that they will be showing it. Just as a point of departure, I need to be indicating that the DPCI is currently investigating 105 matters that relate to Eskom. So these investigations are not necessarily emanating from the report that we are dealing with. We have already started the investigation way back. So in terms of the presentation based on the request that was submitted to us, starting with the table of contents, it will touch on the introduction, slight background, the structure of the intelligence report, which we just labeled it the Fivers report, the criminal allegations, the assessment documentation, and the multidisciplinary approach that we follow, and we will conclude with a way forward. As a matter of introduction, the purpose of this presentation is to appraise the Standing Committee on Public Accounts on the intelligence report commissioned by the former Chief Executive Officer on Eskom on the alleged sabotage. As a matter of background, the intelligence report obtained from the George Fivers report, Forensic Risk Investigation, were obtained. These reports were received by the national head of the DPCI, who had then handed them to the provincial head of the DPCI in Mpumalanga. So that report was received after we have came here in May, the day that we have indicated that there was also a report that purported to be an attempt to report in terms of Section 34 by the former GCEO. So after leaving this committee, when we went back, we engaged with General George Fivers, who provided us with the copy of the report. That is the first time that we obtained this. And it is this report that we then on the 22nd of June handed over to the provincial head of the DPCI in Mpumalanga. We also directed that they engage with the George Fivers, which they have done that. And based on this report, the provincial head obviously assigned the analyst who is part of our Priority Crime Management Center. Those are the ones who analyze all these reports so that we can be informed precisely what is contained, that it can be seen the date on which that was done on the 28th of June. The aim of engagement between the DPCI in Mpumalanga and General George Fivers was to clarify certain issues that are raised in these reports. The report itself have got 348 individual intelligence reports. So looking at this, one can basically say that we had to go through 1,150 pages of this report to analyze so that we package them in such a way that it makes sense. From these individual intelligence reports, 23 liaison reports were received, and where all these individual intelligence reports were grouped and clustered together. That is because every day they will be submitting a different report. We had to consolidate this so that it makes sense, or precisely what is that which is contained in the report. So those were the work that were being done, and it was further observed that certain role players in this liaison report were implicated in multiple individual reports. So this report, they'll prepare one, and then the next time they prepare, they will also link in some of this. So one had to do analysis of all of those reports to try to make sense. How do they relate to each other? I'll then move to the overall criminal allegations. The reports include various criminal activities. We just list some of those. They include the dimensions which affect state-owned entity, the Eskom. That is, the first one is sabotage to Eskom infrastructure. So with regard to sabotage, sabotage by utilizing unemployed foreigners and or co-workers to sabotage or damage infrastructure, putting pressure on Eskom to utilize the emergency to fix the problem at a significant cost. The emergency procurement processes will be utilized to obtain contracts. And Eskom, obviously facing national emergency, may have no choice but to pay the excessive fees charged to address the emergencies. So those were part of what has been alleged to be sabotage. The sabotage by contractors in charge of maintenance who deliberately omitted basic maintenance with the aim to cause damage to infrastructure so that their services for providing additional maintenance can be required. As a result, it will benefit the contractors in charge of the maintenance. So those are part of the sabotage that are emanating, observed from the reports. The next aspect is procurement fraud and corruption. Intelligence report indicated that most companies that were identified belong to subject of the identified groupings, which were awarded contracts without following the correct procurement processes. So those are the various types of procurement fraud as well as corruption that shall have happened in awarding the contracts. So these will be appearing in several reports that we had to put together. In the next slide is what they term coal mafia. The activities of what they term coal mafia include the theft of coal associated with criminal practices. Multiple groups involved in illegal coal yards were identified in the intelligence report. Specific groups operating in and around power station in Mpumalanga were in these reports identified. So there were also prominent and influential persons that were mentioned. As the SIU have indicated, there are names that have been mentioned in these reports, and we have analyzed them and seen. But what we need is evidence to link them to specific crimes, which is what need to be happening. Part of what is happening is that there will be intimidation and threats of violence towards Eskom members. Some will be extensive and life-threatening intimidation that are being raised by employees. Part of what we do is to look at the relationship between several individuals that are alleged to be involved, so that if it forms a syndicate, then we investigate in terms of the Prevention of Organized Crime Act. It is indicated in the reports that they are operating as a syndicate, but we need the elements to prove that, so that if one has to go to court, one will be able to show, to prove beyond reasonable doubt that indeed this individual committed offenses in terms of the Prevention of Organized Crime Act. In the next slide is the intelligence report, the documentation. This intelligence report are of similar in structure. The length is obviously different. There are those that have got 2 pages. There are those that are long, and you just have to read them. It will appear that on a daily basis, one will be compiling a report and depositing. So there are also diagrams that have been drawn as to who is linked with who. But again, this is not supported by evidence. So it's a sort of information which is information stroke intelligence, that you need evidence to show that X is linked with Y in doing what. So we have got those diagrams which we are working on. As to the assessment of this report, although the allegations towards entities, groupings, and individuals are not yet proved, the gathered information need to be corroborated. That is this corroboration that we are looking for. There is the potential that indeed some crimes may have been committed, which need to be proved, corroborated by way of affidavit and the like, in such a manner that we will be able to present something that the National Prosecuting Authority can be able to make a decision. So some of these things we will require affidavits that must be deposed off by the people inside Eskom who have got the know-how. Some of these things have happened. We are working in that direction. From the intelligence report, 10 groupings were identified by the DPCI in Mpumalanga. From the identified groupings, several subjects of interest associated to entities were identified. as we say, that the way in which you structure and group these individuals, because you are basing this on information, we may come with different numbers, but this is what the DPCI, when they assess in Mpumalanga, they said that there appears to be this number of groupings that are operating together. So they are continuing to analyze the information. So there is a need to collate and collect certain information that will assist in ensuring that the information at hand makes sense. In the next slide, we'll talk about how we normally deal with this type of matters. To handle this type of information, you have got to engage what we call multidisciplinary approach. This is a process that is supported by Section 17, capital letter F of the SAPS Act, that requires that we work in collaboration with other entities, not only in the DPCI, in other environment, inclusive of the SIU, as the head have indicated. So we are working on this, and on the 27th of June, the Special Investigation Unit consulted with the provincial head, as the SIU shall have indicated. So there is that collaboration that is taking place. And indeed, there is always a willingness to be working together, which we do. Also in the National Priority Crime Operational Committee, we work together. So working together is a given. And I think that whatever they pick up as criminal matters will ultimately be referred to the NPA and us, so that we get what is needed to deal with criminal aspect while they are dealing with the civil portion of the same activities. With regard to the way forward, we are formalizing the multidisciplinary approach, which I said is supported by Section 17F of the Police Act. While we are working on this, you may find that at the beginning you do not have to create this, but you first gather certain information before you put up a fully fledged team. So the team usually consists of various disciplines, and you can expand this to crime intelligence, the revenue service, the financial intelligence center, the Eskom itself with regard to certain key role players who must depose of affidavit from within, as well as the National Prosecuting Authority will be guiding as to what is that which is needed for a decision to be made. So that speaks to what we can say with regard to the Fivers report, or the report that we analyze. I think that the honorable members will recall previously when we indicated in this forum that there is also a report that was made by somebody else regarding the GCEO, who should have reported the matter to us. So that particular aspect still remains, that it is in that report that we should have obtained certain information which did not come out. So there is that portion, and the portion where one is supposed to be a complainant giving us this information. So basically that is how we treat all the information, that one could be both such a person who must explain and also a person who must actually become a witness. So that, I think, basically conclude the matter of the Fivers report as we shall have received and analyze it. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members.
Thank you very much, General Bia, for the report. DPCI chapter of this sort of engagement. From the SAPS, is there anything that you would, as per reference, you would want to deal with, collaborate, or explain, so that we can have a discussion on this area?
Thanks, Honourable Chairperson and Honourable Members. Well, SAPS, as you are aware, we have been involved in the investigation in the area of Eskom, especially in the Malahleni area. Most of the information that General Levia did brief me about, the team that is working in the Eskom team that's working under General Jacobs, both the reactive and the detective team, are dealing with some of these cases, and they are being investigated in collaboration with the DPCI. So are matters that are under investigation. There has been quite a number of arrests recently. There were some arrests also, and yeah, the investigation is ongoing, and we are foreseeing we will be having a takedown in the near future of more than 20 people that relates to the cartels. It's safe just to leave it there for now, and we can report maybe after we have done the takedown. Regarding the Fivers report, we also, through General Jacobs, referred the matter to the Inspector General of Intelligence on the legalities of the activities as alluded earlier, whether was this an intelligence or private intelligence investigation or what it is. But most of the information that is there, which General Levia briefed me on, the team that is investigating Eskom, most of it, especially coal cartels and so on, are aware of it. They are investigating it, and also some of the matters that relates to some contractings are under investigation. So, yeah, I think it's safe, Honourable Chair and members, maybe to leave it there. There is a lot that is under investigation in this area, including what has been alleged over media and radio and written in books. The situation is not as rosy as it might be stipulated in whatever format, be interview or books. Yeah, the teams, I think, as they go on with the investigation, they will be able to crack most of those cases. With regard to, I don't know whether I should stop there or go on with the Burger matter. Okay, all right, thanks.
Colleagues, that's the report. Thanks to the various institutions that have handled the matter with reference, and it's clear that this has invoked some inertia in as far as legal matters are concerned, and it entails some form of thorough working through. I've sent this little note to advocate after I presented the report, was I had a slight problem that you should probably clarify for me. The note was saying, is the report in brackets, an intelligence report in brackets, or is in brackets Eskom intelligence report? So I sought clarity from that we can have a firm understanding as to what are we dealing with. As I was listening to General Libya termed it Fiverr's report and then the report, this and that, so that we can know what we are dealing with quite appropriately. That question is very critical for us because we should take it from what the report says. How is the report coined? So, advocate came back and pulled off the brackets intelligence on Eskom report. That's what I've received. Intelligence on Eskom report. So it tells us that the writer of the report has provided the title on the report as intelligence on Eskom report. Can we just have the understanding on that? General Libya?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members. I think that I also tried to understand this from the author of the document. The first thing that one is asking himself or herself is if a child is writing in his document, in a book, and they happen to write on top, secret, is that document classified? Is the person who's classifying that document having the authority to classify? If a document is sort of classified by somebody who does not have the competency to classify, is it classified? So I thought that I leave this to the intelligence community so that they can deal with that. I was assured that because it has been raised there, which we have also done it at NICOC, that look at that. We focus on investigation, but look at what this document is insinuating to be, whether it is what it suggests to be or is just information. From us, we have been looking at the information which is contained, leaving that one to be clarified by the relevant environment. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, General Advocate.
No, thank you, Honourable Chair. I think I want to pick up on what General Libya has indicated. And again, just to make reference, because when we looked at the report and looked at various sources, as I said, we also read the book that the former group CEO wrote. And it is very clear that the intention was to gather intelligence, well, amongst others, in their view, or in his view, to gather intelligence on Eskom activities and the criminal, enterprise that's being conducted there. But you'll recall, Honourable Chair, that it was in this committee meeting where the former chair of Eskom, Professor Malekapuru Mahowa, also indicated that the GCEO, and I may not be quoting verbatim, but he indicated that the GCEO indicated that there's a need to gather intelligence, and they may not recall the exact words, but they in a way allowed him to proceed and gather intelligence as he sought to. So it is clear that the intent is there, but as my colleague indicates, the response to the note, Honourable Chair, was clearly that, informed by the fact that the intent was to gather intelligence on Eskom. And it looks like this in their scope and the intent of commissioning this investigation. In fact, the GCEO in his book says when he left, the gathering of intelligence was not complete. It was not completed. And he says that is the legacy that he wanted to leave, in gathering intelligence so that, it could assist, with the investigation and gathering of information to deal with the criminality there. So we said, as we presented, that the report, the commissioning of the report itself, from a corporate governance, from a corporate perspective, from Eskom as a corporate, they have not authorized that report. That is the governance aspect part. Because he went on his own, he did not inform the board. The board, it seems like at the time the chair of the board was aware, but there is no official minutes or records of the authorization of that kind of an investigation. So, from where we are, and just agreeing with my colleague, the head of the DPCI, and as I presented initially, that it may be unauthorized, but the usefulness of the information has to be treated differently. So we're using it as a source of information that could enable or even assist the investigation. And indeed, we are doing so, because there are indications of matters that require investigation. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Advocate and General. Over to you, colleagues. Let me get into, by the way, we are here to raise hands. Yeah. To deliberate on these matters. Honourable, let me just write down the names. Van Muren. Is there another hand? And police. That's it. Honourable Van Muren.
Thank you, Chair. One doesn't really know where to start with this. I mean, it really is a bit like wading through molasses trying to make progress with the situation. I think the first thing to really look at is, so there is a investigation / report, whatever it is we want to call it, that appears to be unauthorized. But I think what the real takeaway there is given what we have seen and heard with regards to Eskom, with the chronic issues of corruption, the allegations and the indications of cartels, the issues with coal, everything that has been swirling around this particular state entity now for years, not to mention the utter crisis the country finds itself in because of this, because of the inability of Eskom to actually perform its duty and its mandate. I think the big takeaway is that it is not exactly unexpected that one potentially has a GCEO who, particularly when we consider the conversations that have been had with Minister Gordhan, felt the need to try to have some kind of investigation into what was going on to then be able to use as a signpost for the policing and the law enforcement agencies whose job it is to actually investigate, to put together the cases, to make them trial ready, and then to bring the evidence to court. It might be so that it was potentially having governance issues, that is so, but to, and I think I've said this before, to shoot the messenger and then ignore what the messenger is saying is not a responsible way of investigating a state entity that, quite frankly, is crippling the country at this point. Now, I think what Advocate Matui has said is true. It is something that indicates where to look. Its usefulness can then be harnessed by the Hawks, by SAPS. And previously, we have been very concerned that there appears to be so little movement. So I'm very, very glad to hear that something is happening. I think, however, one does have to bring up the issue of the current board. The current chair, certainly the last time we met, appeared rather disengaged from trying to investigate what was actually going on within the organization. I'm not going to comment further on his potential extraneous issues. And I also sincerely hope, Chair, that we do touch on the Brigadier Burger matter, because I think that there are great concerns there about what has and has not been conveyed accurately or not to this Committee of Parliament, and I think that also opens a whole number of questions. So essentially, what I wanted to know at this particular point, is there or are there genuine attempts to move forward with these investigations? I realize that there might be reluctance in some quarters to rely on the Fivers report, but is there at least an attempt to follow the signposts, to see what is happening, and to actually attempt to genuinely unpack what is happening at Eskom? I mean, it's good and well to blame unemployed foreigners. This committee itself has found it difficult enough to sometimes access Eskom installations. I'm not really sure how unemployed foreigners are going to do that. So I really would like to have some kind of confirmation from the Hawks and SAPS in particular that indeed there are investigations being made, that evidence is being looked at or looked for, and that one can hopefully see progress in this matter at a slightly faster rate than we have seen over the last year and a half, where, quite frankly, most of these meetings have been people denying what other people have been saying with no genuine forward movement. And instead, we've just been engaging in a roundabout argument about semantics, and that certainly doesn't take us any further. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Hadebe.
Thank you, Chair. Act 108 of 96, Chair, Chapter 11, Section 209, read as follows: Establishment and control of intelligence services. Any intelligence service other than any intelligence division of Defence Force or police service may be established only by the President as the head of the national executive and only in terms of national legislation. The President, as the head of national executive, must appoint a woman or a man as the head of each intelligence service established in terms of subsection 1 and must either assume political responsibility for the control and direction of any of those services or designate a member of a cabinet to assume that responsibility. In responding to your question as it relates to intelligence, let me therefore, Chair, take this responsibility as a person who initially wrote a letter and requested SCOPA to pursue the matter on behalf, of course, of the political party that deployed us, and welcome the arrests that have been made thus far. We truly and sincerely appreciate and congratulate the dedication and the hard work, both from your department advocate, Dr. Advocate General Lebeya, and Advocate Mutibi, and the National Commissioner. Keep up the good work. If you were not doing your work, you were competing in a competition, you deserve a standing ovation for great work that I've conducted. But you are doing your work. As such, I must resist the temptation for applauding the fish for swimming. But credit must be given where credit is due. We truly appreciate. Continue arresting more and leave no stone unturned in dealing with this Eskom matter. Whether it's senior politicians, backbenchers like us, anyone who is involved must face the full might of the law and do not be threatened or intimidated by anyone in executing your mandate. There are few areas of concern arising from the report, and I don't want to repeat the presentation, but it's quite concerning to note that George Fivers is not a registered vendor of Eskom, and to date they are not willing to disclose the funder. We don't know for what reason and to what extent is that funder related to Eskom. Very concerning. We are also informed that it appears that the person or company responsible or the entity responsible is BLSA, because the report was given to them. We don't know to what extent those agencies accessed Eskom information and method used. To date, we are still wondering to what extent have they accessed such information. You have mentioned, Advocate, in your report that out of 54, there are 32 matters that fall squarely within your purview and mandate. However, you did not mention the other 32. Where do they fall? Now, I was listening with keen interest to hear from Dr. Advocate General whether or not the remainder will be pursued by your good self or the National Police Commissioner. So can you please clarify and share with us the remainder of the 54? Where do they fall? It's 32, no? Yeah. Honorable Chair, we now know that the former Group Chief Executive was not authorized by Eskom to conduct the so-called intelligence report. Now, the principles of legality says one cannot exercise power or perform any function not assigned to him or her. Now, what I want to get to know and understand, having understood that there was no authority given to the former Group Chief Executive, did he has powers to do so in terms of his fiduciary responsibility and general roles and responsibility assigned to him. He might not have been granted authority by the accounting authority, but did he, one way or the other, have such powers to do what he did? If indeed he did not have such powers, what then should be the next step to be pursued? And have you exhausted that aspect in terms of his conduct? We welcome and appreciate the fact that some of the findings contained in the report does warrant to be pursued further and to be dealt with until a verdict or a sanction is found in relation to what is contained. We also note the fact that there was no authority given to conduct such. So we are indeed going to separate those two issues so that we do not disregard the report in its entirety, but we deal with the matters separately and ensure that we do justice into issues raised and the conduct and the modus operandi that was employed in arriving at this particular matter. There are several contracts, I assume, that
hold it there. It looks like you've got a load of questions.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it would be prudent that we allow already 2 members have indulged in questioning. We might conflict in terms of responses. So let's allow the team to give responses. If Honorable von Minen still wants to ask a question, would be welcome to do so, and you would continue with your questions.
As the chair pleases.
No, thank you, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members. Honourable van Minen, we agree that even though it appears to be unauthorized, the report and the contents thereof cannot be ignored. And as we indicated, that we are indeed following through on the information that's contained, and in particular the criminal aspects will be, the General will reconfirm, will be investigated accordingly. Honourable Hadebe, that's, I'll just request my colleague to really respond to the exact numbers in terms of contracts 54, 22, and so on. The lead investigator is here. It's just so that I don't miss any number. I'm going to ask him, is Mr. Governor, to respond to this 54 versus the balance and so on. So, Mr. Governor, please, if you can just clarify to the committee around which ones fell within our scope and which ones were referred to the DPCI. Thank you.
Thank you, Advocate Motibi. Good morning, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members. What I can confirm, and we should be mindful that when the SIU did its analysis, we based it on themes. we understand that the DPCI has done a similar analysis on the same reports. They have a different way of identifying the area. So we must not restrict the areas in terms of whether it's 54 or whether it's 10, as the DPCI is saying. But we've identified there are 54 broad themes in general throughout these reports. All 54 themes have elements of criminality, which we have subsequently referred to the DPCI. Within that 54, we also find an overlap of 22 matters that falls within the SIU mandate. So it's not 54 and 22. It is 54 in total. From there, there's an overlap of 22 matters that we could be involved in. And that is the numbers that we have. But these numbers, depending on how the investigation goes and progresses and what we find, will definitely change. It may reduce, it may increase. We have to be guided by the evidence and see where that takes us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Honourable
General. Do you want to pick up a point on? Oh, you're still referring to something else? Yes. Okay.
Just to conclude on some of the questions that Honourable Hadebe mentioned, and then my colleague can probably come in. The issue around the, as I indicated, the authorization versus the usefulness of the report, I think is a critical distinction to make, and both of them will receive attention. So, correct, we agree, Honourable Hadebe, that one cannot perform powers that are not assigned to him. So, in this regard, having engaged with Eskom, we have gathered that the accounting authority has not authorized the commissioning of this report. So, the team will continue now to sort of go into details in terms of his contract of employment and just drill down in terms of what could he have done this, in terms of his contract of employment, and they will drill down now into those details. But from the accounting authority perspective, it's clear that he wasn't authorized. So we will look at that. Although we're still going to do that, and if one assumes that, and in a very unlikely event that when we drill down, we find that he could do that. But, if he could do that, then he would probably have contracted on behalf of Eskom. But the contract is between private entities to investigate into the affairs of the state institution. That is what we find fundamentally problematic. That it's really setting a concerning precedent. That you would have private entities just interacting themselves, getting into contracts themselves to investigate into state institutions. That is an unacceptable scenario, if I were to put it that way. We would recommend that however good intentions were to assist with the investigations and ensure that it unravels the cartel nature of the criminality, but there are governance frameworks within which this has to be done. Honourable Hadebe, you've just read from the supreme legislation of the country, and my colleague General Libya and General Masemola have indicated that that aspect will probably the Inspector General would be best placed, to give the final advice either to us as investigators so that we can formulate an appropriate finding relating to the intelligence gathering nature of this exercise. It is very, very important that, we create a base and knowledge and awareness that matters have to be done in accordance with the rule of law. It's very, very important. You can't have a CEO of a state institution, I don't think even in a corporate, that you could just, go and outside of the rule of law, applicable to the corporate, go and do something else. However good intention that may be, and that's where, as SIU in investigating the maladministration part, we have gone to this extent, because we would like to assist in the improvement of the administration, while we don't lose sight of the need to intensify the effort to us. We really, really support that. But of course, within the rule of law and policies and framework applicable to the state and to the state institutions. What action would be taken, assuming that if he did not have the powers, that's the part where we will still assess and get counsel, and then we will then return an appropriate recommendation. Thank you.
General.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Members. I think that the first one by Madam Vermeulen, we just need to also confirm that we are serious and genuine about our investigation of these matters. So information, wherever we receive it, we always pursue it. Some of the information that we pursue come from the suspects themselves. So wherever the information comes, we pursue that. So we are serious and genuine about this. I have assigned a colonel, he's a very senior officer, to analyze this information. Very, very experienced member. So that is how serious we are, and we have got a team that is actually looking at this. With regard to the second portion of Honourable Hadebe, I think that I have noted the Honourable member reading original text from the Constitution as it was done in 1996. Obviously, there is a 2005 that modified the citation process. But otherwise, that is what we highlighted with the relevant institutions that look at this, so that you're properly advised, because there is a different interpretation of what that particular portion is saying. Who is it instructing? Whether it is an instruction to the government departments or is an instruction to everybody, regardless of who. So that's why we have requested the relevant environment to assist us on that aspect. So thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Honourable Vermeulen, are you okay with the response?
Thank you. I'm just hoping to hear from SAPS as well in this regard, because I think that is certainly something where we've had concerns in the past. And this whole issue of this report, to just ensure that SAPS is also actually moving forward, it's not just the Hawks in this regard.
Okay. Shina?
Thanks, Honourable Chair and members. On the question whether is there any attempts to follow up on these matters, the answer is yes. We have arrested people in the past. We reported to this committee. And today I'm reporting that we'll be arresting more than 20 in the near future of those people that are involved, which one don't want to get more deeper. But we think we are on the right track, Honourable Chairperson. Matters that I was briefed by General beyond the report, most of those cases, the team led by General Jacobs was already busy with them. Those are the matters that will relate to the storage of coal in illegal places and so on, or the coal cartels. We're already busy with them. So it is not new matters, it's matters that we're already busy with, and we are moving forward with them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Honorable Hatebe.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your guidance and direction in this matter. I was saying, Chair, and just to illustrate the point of us having to not neglect the conduct of the former Group Chief Executive. There are contracts that were subsequently awarded as a result of the so-called intelligence report and the manner in which those contracts were awarded under the pretense of emergency contracts. It does appear to me, Chair, that an emergency will be created for certain individuals to benefit. And I would love to see an investigation into all these emergency contracts as to what was the circumstances surrounding such emergencies and how those emergency contracts were awarded. We need to get into the bottom of these emergency contracts over and above the Fidelity and others, because the issue of sabotaging Eskom and then on the same hand the javelin throw, you go on the other side and become the service provider to benefit. We need to get to the bottom of this. So I would like to implore and request the law enforcement agencies to look into the matter and with specific reference and focus on the current matter at hand, because there is a smoke and we cannot ignore what we are seeing before us. The other matter that I will also touch base on it, Chair, is the way forward in relation to SCOPA, whether or not we have done enough in terms of dealing with this matter. Should we now allow the relevant authorities, the law enforcement agencies, to pursue this matter further? But I'll get to that as I conclude, Chair, and to say, indeed, work has been done, particularly as it relates to slide 13, that we see the contract values that are before courts as it relates to civil litigation, the sum of 7.9 billion. That's a sign and indication that work is happening. We see that there were contracts that were set aside to the value of 10.2 billion. Clearly, that's a demonstration of that work is happening in this regard. So there shouldn't be any imagination or picture painted that nothing is being done in this regard as it pertains to this allegation. We see before us the figures and the administrative referrals, the number of those, it's 85. NPA referrals, it's 160. So there is work done. Hence, I was saying, Chair, this meeting should provide a way forward in relation to this matter. Have we dealt with all parties concerned that will enable this matter to be concluded, and all those capable of stealing the taxpayers' money should be brought to book? Do we still have work to be done? Have we done enough? According to the presentation of today, it seeks to suggest that SCOPA has dealt with this matter thoroughly, and SIU, the Hawks,
don't get into the way forward. Let's allow let's allow other members to, if they have questions and all that stuff, comments, and then we're going to get into that point.
Oh, so I must wait with my way forward?
Yeah, with a proposition on way forward.
Oh, all right.
I will allow you to do that.
No, it's fine, Chair.
Yeah,
I was...
I used to sit in that seat asking questions. I'm so itchy this side. You know what, nevertheless. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, Chair. I will come with the way forward when we are ready to deal with the way forward. I'm interested, Chair, in the conduct of BLSA. I'm really interested and concerned. And we need, as this committee, but the SIU will assist us in this regard. We need to move with speed so that we do not set a wrong precedent that money talks. Those who have money, they can do as they please. They can go into any state entity, throw money, call friends, come and investigate, and arrive at a particular conclusion. I'm raising this, if you see the trend of those that are leaving Eskom and where do they go afterwards, the type of jobs that they land themselves in, and what they benefit out of being a public servant. Others, they produce books, they're selling books through utilizing the state-owned entities' resources, time, instead of focusing on what they were employed to do. Others now are employed overseas. Surely they are using what they've gathered at Eskom to benefit themselves. It's not only the former group chief executive, even the group chief operations officer. So we need to pursue this. It can't be business as usual when private sector is involved in corruption. It can't be termed collusion when it's public sector, it's sheer corruption. When it's private sector, we'll be told of this fancy word, collusion. We must call corruption for what it is, Chair. So I really want us to have a view on how should we deal with this BLSA. It now explains the conduct of Madam in one of our oversight. It's like Simnyatele Ikons. That outburst, Chair, was unwarranted. Now lies have got short legs. They've caught up with her. We now know what informed that behavior. They were unleashing millions to do what they were not authorized or don't have powers to do. They are not running this country. Let me pause there, Chair, before I say, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Hadebe. I think the point there, which ought to be followed, probably a comment, which the SIU has referred to in terms of the report, is the PLC conduct, whether is there anything to be followed there. In fact, you have referred to that point in the report. You want to affirm it?
Sorry, Chair, the question, can we do something to force them to disclose the other funders?
Thank you, Honourable Chair, and thank you, Honourable Hadebe. As we indicated, that both the conduct of the GCEO, former, and the BLSA will look at it, will consider it further, and then advise on having also heard the comments in terms of what recommendations would be made in view of the current legal framework. What is it that they've done? Does it really pass the test of having acted within the rule of law? That will receive further detailed intention, and it will have appropriate recommendation which we will bring to this committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Advocate. Honorable Hadebe.
The question was, can we do something to force them to disclose? Are we empowered, and which legal prescript can we place reliance on in ensuring that we force them to disclose the other funder, and they need to explain the extent of access to public state-owned entity in relation to what they were conducting? Thank you.
No, thanks, Honorable Chair and Honorable Hadebe. When the investigators went to interview the member of BLSA, it was as a result of the cooperation that they have offered. So in further investigating this area, we will then consider the legal prescripts that the SIU has in terms of, subpoenaing them for further interview, and we will consider any legal considerations in terms of further disclosures of the funders. With respect to, because I understand the question to be probably two-pronged, that can as law enforcement or SIU in particular do something, we will consider and pursue now the interviews further in terms of the legislation. The other prong is, can SCOPA do something? In which case we will leave it to the Honourable Committee to then. But we will come with our recommendations and the report of what we have done and what are the legal basis on which we can request BLSA to disclose the funders. Thank you.
Honorable Liz. Honorable Liz. Are you? No, right, next, third one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it's a bit distressing in a way. You know, Advocate Matibi, I've said many times that I'm a fan of you and your SIU's work and the success that you have, and I remain so. I do. But I'm somewhat taken aback about the vigor with which one is pursuing the messenger in this case and not the substance. We have in South Africa state-owned entities. Every single one of them, I think, has got problems, but 99% of them are a disgrace and a collapse, and have had CEOs, whether group or otherwise, who have acted in a way that I believe is not in terms of the rule of law. And yet I don't see the same vigor from those of you sitting on that side to follow up on those people who acted deliberately and consciously in a way that just was not in terms of the rule of law and not in the interests of South Africa. Here we have a GCEO who may well have been delinquent. I'm not in a position to determine whether he was delinquent or not. But what I am in a position to determine is that he was attempting to deal with the best interests of the company he was heading up. I'm yet to be convinced that that was not his motivation. But here we have this great vigor to pursue him and not the others. Why are we not pursuing the others in the same way? Why? Is it because they have connections? Advocate Matibi and you, General Abia, have said you don't want to say who the names are there. Well, I'm going to ask you, is the name of David Mbuza in that report? Can I have an answer, please? Let me start with you, Advocate Matibi, because you have been, I hold you in high esteem, and I haven't changed that opinion, so please don't let me give you that impression. Is that name in that report?
Advocate, though, in answering that question, you are here because we asked you to be here. You are doing what you are doing because we insisted that you must do it. So we must not prosecute you by doing what we asked you to do. So in answering such questions, it should not be as if you are at liberty at this point to venture into any other matters. The matter in front of you is this matter, and therefore we don't want generality into dealing with it. So I think in dealing with the question, you must probably focus on that point. Stop it. Advocate.
No, thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Liz, thank you for those questions and for the kind words. We are certainly not pursuing the proverbial messenger, as you indicate, more than pursuing the substance. When we presented, we indicated that we looked at the authority to commission the investigation, but also looked at the usefulness of the report. And we did indicate that we cannot ignore the contents of the report. That is, I think, very, very important to note. And we will pursue it with rigor. We have indicated the joint operations that we have with the DPCI, and we will continue to do so, just like we have done before. There are those reports that we have presented before SCOPA, where members of the previous board, members including the executive authority, members of senior management of Eskom are being pursued rigorously in courts, civil courts, and in the criminal courts. This is no difference. When we say we will pursue and investigate without fear, favor, or prejudice, we really, really mean it. And that we shall not differentiate based on any measure. We did indicate that the good intent that the former GCEO may have had in doing this does not preclude us looking at the governance part so that we're able to make recommendations that would inform and guide state institutions going forward. So we can confirm and really, really assure the Honourable Committee and Honourable Liz that we will consider and pursue the substance of the report with rigor and ensure that we bring out the results, and those who are found in the wrong, irrespective, and I agree with Honourable Hadebe, irrespective of what station in life you hold, irrespective of which name appears in the report, we will pursue that. Based on that, I indicated that there are names being mentioned in the report, but we've got legal constraints. With respect, that we would like to mention the names at a time where evidence allows us to do so, and within the constraints and the framework of the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Advocate Matibi. The question was specific about the name, and you've declined to answer that, and I accept that. But my question was specifically about other state-owned entities. Let's take PRASA, for instance. PRASA has been completely denuded as a result of what I believe was not following the rule of law of previous boards and CEO. Are you acting against the previous CEO of PRASA? If so, we need to know about it. But that really is my point. And it's not just, I'm not just focused on you, Advocate. General Labia and the Commissioner as well need to understand that South Africans are not focusing on individuals, they're focusing on the rape of the state, the complete rape of the state by people who go away and see no consequences. That is the thing. And so I'm pleased to say that you've arrested 7 people, but it's really quite small. And again, I don't want to seem to be denigrating the good work you're doing. It is good. And I'll get to you now, General Labia. But the fact is that who's in jail? Are they there for 20, 30 years? And why isn't there a plethora of these people in jail? What is it that's holding us back here? And so given your record, and I'm directing it to you, but the same question I'll direct to General Labia, is given your good record of success, and given the latest directives to cut back on expenditure, my concern is that you are constrained and have been all along by the lack of resources, both people and other forms of resources. Is that not an element of why we're not seeing more people being arrested rather than just 7? If we as the state were to make you stronger resource-wise, surely you could do a lot more, and we could satisfy South Africans that we really are changing and putting the bad guys in jail.
No, just hold it there. Honorable, yes, Honorable Mazambane. They aye.
Sorry?
See, no, I'm just trying to prevail on, yeah. You know, our agenda item is not what you are getting into. We had PRASA here the other day. We had Transnet the other day. We had to be fair to the officers here, it is the point in hand, the point that we have received deliberations on is Eskom, and let's deal with Eskom, and let's not go anywhere else. You are free to ask your question, any question, as it relates to such instance. I want to plead with you, Mazambane.
Thank you, Honourable Somya, for your guidance. But the question is an Eskom question. The question is that after all this time of Eskom, would the SIU have made more progress, potentially, had the resources been available?
SIU?
No, thank you. Thank you, Honourable Chair. Thank you, Honourable Lees. Without really deviating further from the question at hand, we would appreciate the opportunity, Honourable Chair and Honourable Lees, to return and present on PRASA in detail, so that we can demonstrate that there has been focused attention on that institution and who has been identified and held to account. On the issue of resources, I think we are on record as saying we have identified really that on SIU, if I give just an indication that we have seen quite an increase in the proclamations that are being proclaimed. At last count, we had seen more than 100% increase, which is quite substantive. And that is increasing in the face of other ongoing investigations, including the Eskom investigation. So, and there are allegations still coming through. You've seen an amendment of the proclamation to Eskom. So yes, indeed, we continue to ensure that we present our case for further resources. And yes, if resources are increased, we would do more and be able to produce the results even more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And, sorry. Thank you. And Advocate Matibi, I certainly will do my best to ensure that agencies such as yours, the Hawks, the NPA, I'm not so sure about the South African Police Services, have my juries out on that one, get better resourced. Because I really do believe that you are under-resourced. So, General Levere, you know, I have, despite our sparring from time to time, starting in 2018, I think, early 2018, about the slow progress of your investigations, and I'm talking again of Steinhoff, where Marcus Justus still runs free after some nearly 6 years. The 6th anniversary is coming up in December 2023. So I don't know that I really want to ask this question, Mr. Chairman, because I think the answer from Advocate Matibi applies equally to the Hawks in terms of we could do more if we had more resources. But perhaps you want to just confirm that, General, because it's self-evident, I think, but I'd love to hear you say we could do more if we had more resources.
General?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. And I think that I needed to also touch on the other two questions that were raised, which we did not respond to. Firstly, I would have loved clarity as to the messenger that might be pursued, because there is a report, somebody who compiled the report, and there is somebody who should have reported. So it is not very much clear as to whether the one who was obliged to report could be seen as a messenger, or the one who have compiled the report, who is the messenger. Otherwise, generally, what we do is we don't pursue any individual. We look at the crime. And it can be seen from the case of Tlhagudi and others that we have arrested in Eskom, involving 745 million rands. And that matter is ready. If Mike Lomas, who is now sitting in the UK, can come back and come and join others in the dock, then we can see that matter progressing. So at this stage, it seems that these things will move slowly, but there are other people elsewhere who are delaying this. He ran from another country in the UK, and then he's challenging all of the processes in court to exhaust, to avoid coming back, to come and join others who are now in the dock. These matters are complicated. That's why they at times take time. In these specific matters, there are 426 statements that have been filed. It is the work that the people have done. And the charges is 95 counts in one matter. So we normally talk about one matter, but when you open, that matter is voluminous. The second question was the naming, the question as to whether certain names come in the report. And I think that the author did not mention in the public arena as to who are listed in the report. And from the DPCI, I think the practice has always been that we mention when we charge, not at the time of the investigation. That's why even when we talk Steinhoff, I normally prefer to talk of Steinhoff, not an individual who has not been charged. Obviously, it is not for that matter that we are dealing with today of Steinhoff, but there are other countries that are also delaying us, that we need evidence from those countries. And some of the countries obviously are proceeding, but we wait information from those countries to come. Otherwise, we will be only prosecuting a certain portion, and we leave some of the counts that are supposed to be included. The last question of the resources, I think that we have been vocal on this point of the resources. We are currently sitting at 52% of the capacity. So obviously we are building on this, and then I think it becomes apparent that the volume of work that we have, which is more than 22,000 cases, require more hands. So when you have got that number of dockets on hand, it means that the pace of finalization of these matters may need a little bit more time than if you have got more hands. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you, General Lebeer. Yeah, so resources are constrained in the country, and largely because of the bailouts of Eskom and all these other things, and malfeasance all over the place. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure how we go forward, because Rule 168, I'm becoming a Beki Hatebe here now, Honourable. But that rule gives us
You're on way forward now. You are getting into way forward now.
It provides privilege for us as members, but it equally provides privilege for the people appearing before committees. And so therefore, it's my opinion, and I'm going to have to take legal advice on this, but unless you want to rule...
On the way forward, eh?
No, it's not the way forward.
Okay.
It's about... I'll get to that. It's unless you're going to assist me by ruling, but it's my opinion that both Advocate Matibi and General Lebeer are obliged to answer my question about whether the name of David Mabuza appears in the report. So it's up to you, Mr. Chairman, to make a ruling. Otherwise, we'll check from a legal point of view where we stand. But that's certainly our opinion, is that there's no escape for General Lebeer and Advocate Matibi but to answer the question given the status of everyone in this meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think let's accept what has been the standing rule from their side, NPA and everyone involved in terms of investigations. Allow them to finish whatever they do, and when the time allows, they would be at a stage where they would pronounce the names involved on a matter. Even the court of law up until people appear at the courts, there's no way that you would name those individuals. So let's allow that kind of a process. It's fair, because you'd name people in an allegation which is not proved, and you damage individuals. And I think let's allow fairness into such kind of a standing practice. I want to plead with the committee around such. At the right time, definitely would know and insist to know.
Thank you for your ruling, Mr. Chairman. And yeah, I don't accept the substance of it, but I have to accept your ruling, though. So that, absolutely.
Do I want to?
No, just clarity on. I think Honourable Lisa referred to Powers, Privileges and Immunity Act. My understanding, Chair, on that aspect, if a person appears before the committee, that person, for him or her to be protected before the start of the meeting, you must take an oath on affirmation that whatever you say, you are. Yes. So if you have not taken that, then you are not covered. Remember when we dealt with. Remember when we dealt with Mr. Andre de Reiter, and he refused to take an oath and affirmation. He was therefore not protected in that aspect. So we can't, in the middle, towards the tail end, want to invoke that which you have not administered at the start of the meeting.
Out of order. Well, I've ruled on the matter. We go to Honourable Makaba. Honourable Makaba.
Chair, thank you very much. But I just wanted to make a comment on the ruling. But I understand you've just made a ruling. But I think on this matter that is raised by the member, we need a legal opinion, because there's two folds on this thing. There's an issue of us in the scope having a jurisdiction to get the information that we need, and from the legal side, they have their legal opinion in terms of not disclosing the names before they are being charged. So I think we need a legal opinion on this matter. I hear that you have made a ruling on it, but I think we should take that into consideration, because I think we should then separate about which one overrides the other in this instance. And then my second question, Chairperson, firstly, I just want to commend the committee, the department rather, on the recovery of the 1.577 billion. That's very progressive in terms of the matter of the case. And then my second question, Chairperson, is on the issue of the Hawks report on page 7, where they are mentioning the issue of intimidation and the threats and the violence on the Eskom members, where it further mentions that there is also extensive and life-threatening intimidations that have been raised towards the Eskom employees. So my question is that as part of the investigation, I want to know is if there are any measures in place to make sure that these people are protected, the Eskom employees who are being life-threatened. We all know, sitting in this room, that there's a lot of cases other than this case whereby whistleblowers have been assassinated to destroy evidence. So that's my first question. And then the last question is on slide 13, on the issue of the 85 entities that have been taken to administration in terms of referrals of SARS and blacklisting. I want to know if there is a list of those names and if they can be also made public. Chair, I think I'll end there, because the other two questions have been mentioned, have been responded to, the issue of the 32 cases that were not in the jurisdiction of the SIU. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can we start with General?
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson and Honourable Members. Ours is regarding the witnesses as to whether there is a protection of those that are being intimidated and the threat made to them. We generally take this on a case-by-case basis. It may also have appeared in the media not so long where somebody else have been indicating that there are these threats and the like. And we engage each individual, each witness. And even those that came before the media, we engaged them. We explained how the system is working. And those that are prepared are actually taken into the program. I think that the individual that may also have come in the media in the recent past, we engaged and offered. Unfortunately, the people do not always come back and inform the public through the media that this is what have transpired. I was actually offered to be taken into the system for the purpose of protection. So we take it on case-by-case basis. So in terms of the report, as indicated in the presentation, is what we extracted from the Fivers report, that there are this type of threats. But whenever the individual witness require that, we take that into consideration, Chairperson. Thanks.
Thank you, General. Advocate?
No, thank you, Honourable Chair and Honourable Member. With regards to the companies that have been referred, we just really didn't detail them because the focus today was on the Fivers report. But otherwise, we can, as a team, compile that list, and in conjunction with National Treasury and SARS, and see and refer it to the Secretary. Thanks.
Do you have any further question? Satisfied?
I've got a last question.
Okay.
The last question, Chair, but it also speaks on the issue of the names that will not be released before because of legal constraints. Wait, can I be protected, Chairperson? I want to know is there is 4 people that have been having allegations of having corrupted Eskom with 4 million. Can't we have a list of those names published?
Fighter. No, Hadeb. No, Hadeb. I think you're getting back to what we dealt with. Until there's finality on those areas, then we are going to be preferred with the detail, including names. I think that's what we've heard from both the SIU and the General on the matter. We are going to move towards way forward. But Honourable Bukas, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you also for the work that you have done so far, SIU and Hawks, and the responses. I just have maybe 1 or 2 clarities. Chair, in the report of the presentation of the SIU on page, on the scope of the contract, and in your meeting with Fivers, who was the report meant for when they finalized? Because Eskom don't authorize the investigation. So who was the report meant for when they are finalized? And then the disciplinary referrals, it's the 5,617. All of those employees still in the employment of Eskom, and what was the challenges SIU in the engagement with Eskom. Then to the Hawks on page 8, just clarity on the individuals are not proved yet, the allegations are not proved yet. So you still gather the intelligence need to be corroborated as the potential exists to investigate. With not proof yet, it means that there is no affidavits attached in the Fivers report, or is my understanding correct? And then all of us, we are asking for the names in the report or a name in the report. And I think, why is it that we can't ask, or why is it so difficult for us to, why is it such a secret if it is a noble act from the side of the GCEO? That secret funders, who are the funders? I don't think it's a question for you, but I just want to also ask it in the open, because since we deal with this Eskom thing, I was asking, why is it a secret? Because if it was noble, why is it a secret? Thank you, Chair.
Advocate, and then thereafter to be the general.
No, thank you, Honourable Chair. Thank you, Honourable Bierkes. In our presentation, we did indicate that the parties to the contract were BLSA and the Fivers Company, and the report was submitted to BLSA. So it does appear that the report was meant for BLSA. With regard to the referrals for disciplinary action, more than 5,000, I've just asked my colleague to see if we can pull out the previous report just to indicate the status of how many have been, acted upon and how many are still ongoing. In few minutes, if we are able to pull out that, we can give the status. But otherwise, the charges range from failure to disclose interest, doing business with the state with Eskom without appropriate permission, and so on. So that's the bulk of the charges, and we are aware that Eskom have started taking action against most of those officials. But we'll see if we can get the details. So my colleague, if you have them here, Mr. Lekgetho, you can please provide. Otherwise, we can provide that later to the committee. Thank you.
General.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson and the honourable members. From the DPCI, indeed, when we say that the matters could not be proved at this stage, could not be corroborated, there are no affidavits attached. It's only the information. So what needs to be happening is that to corroborate, you need something where somebody can be tested, which is usually a form of an affidavit. In the report, no, it is not, nothing is attached. Some are 2 pages, some have got 12 pages, but it's just written notes. Thank you.
Honourable Bierkes, are you fine?
Yeah, Chair. Maybe just a layman's question. So how legitimate is the report then? If they are just notes in the report and not necessarily affidavits? I'm asking out of not knowing. Maybe, yeah, miskien is dit 'n dom vraag. But, yeah.
Yeah. She's saying as a laywoman, that's a question.
Thank you. As we shall have indicated, I'll answer in a layman, not as a jurist. I think that it is information that is written on a page, and then we follow to see if the content of the information that is written on this page can be believed. So that, I think, is the way in which I can explain in general terms. It's not an affidavit where somebody take an oath that what you see here is under oath, I swear to the content. Thanks.
So that's why you are pursuing them, to ascertain. Yes, that's it. Lubengo?
Thank you, Chair. On the issue of criminal allegations, you just indicate about the multiple group involved in illegal coal yard that you were identified. You also indicate the specific groups operating in and out power station in Mpumalanga that were identified, and you never say anything about the arrest. So I just wanted to get clear on that. And also, I just wanted to know how long were you investigating this issue? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members. This presentation is based on the report that we have indicated, the Fivers report. So it's an assessment and analysis of what is contained in that. So we haven't specifically linked the arrests with this report. So the arrests that we were talking about, also the number of cases that we are handling, is not necessarily coming out of this report, is what we have been handling. So the arrests are not directly emanating from this report. This arrest is what we have been dealing with. As an example, the Tlhagudi matter that I'm talking about, the investigation shall have started in 2017, and then the arrest shall have been done in 2020. So they are matters that we have been handling, which unfortunately some find expression in this report. So the investigation comes way back, and this report that we are talking about, as the SIU shall have indicated, 2022, 2023. So it's recent report, but the activities themselves shall have been happening before the report itself is compiled. So I think that is how I can respond to the issue of the arrest and the time frame of the investigation. So the report itself, as I've indicated, was only given to the team in Mpumalanga in June this year. So, but the matters that we are talking about, we have been handling them before this report was brought to our attention. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Wool.
Thank you very much, Chair. To all protocol observed. We'll be more than pleased as the committee to see the finalization of this report as soon as possible. Why I'm saying that? I'm saying that that it's because it was done in the front of the people. People, they're asking that how was the conclusion? Where is the conclusion of what the writer have said? I think that whatever you do,
Advocates, we are pleading to you. Assist us on this. It's very important. It's very, very important. I thank you.
Thank you very much, the Honourable Zibula.
Just a comment.
Do you have any comment, Advocate?
No, thanks, Honourable Chair and Honourable Zibula. Chair, we take the comment and that we will ensure really that the turnaround time and the speed of the investigation is such that, you know, we're able to deal with the substance of the report and the information in there, so that we can be able to pronounce publicly what the outcome of the investigations are. Chair, if you allow, while on the floor, I think the question around the emergency contracts that Honourable Hardebe mentioned, we can confirm that we're not only dealing with the security contract, we are also going to look at other emergency contracts that were concluded. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Advocate. We are getting into the way as a proposal. Honourable Leas wanted to speak on the way forward. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
The issue of Brigadier Burger, I think, will influence the way forward, won't it? I'm not sure.
You think so? Eh?
I think so.
Okay. If you think so, the Brigadier matter has been hanging for a while. I'm sure we have received copies of some correspondence which has been forwarded to the Speaker recently and some time ago with the intention of an indication that Brigadier Burger is not prepared to come to the committee. The latest one, those correspondences are not to the committee; they are to the Speaker. The Speaker has copied the committee, and the latest one is referring to the fact that the authority that he could probably be prepared to listen to is on the security cluster related committees, and the preference is with a joint standing committee on intelligence. So in highlighting such, he as well makes reference to the fact that on the first instance, when he couldn't come to the committee, he told the commissioner that he's not coming, not what the commissioner told us. So Brigadier Burger has shown his own intent in as far as such correspondences are concerned. So it's us as committee to decide as to what to want to do in terms of his intent. Yeah, so you might be correct in saying when we frame the way forward, we might as well want to frame the way forward in terms of Brigadier Burger as well. Honourable Famina.
Thank you very much. A couple of things. One, I think it is a very unfortunate slide towards trying to push everything into the joints on intelligence. It's something that this committee has discussed at length before. A certain political party, in fact, removed a member of this committee who was not following that particular party's caucus line on the subject. I think it's something we really need to guard against. But that isn't really what the issue is at this point. With Brigadier Burger and the letter that was sent to the Speaker, he makes certain allegations about the police commissioner's statements to this committee in June. If what he says is in fact factual, it would appear that there was a certain fragility with the truth when it came to informing this committee as to why he was not here. If that is the case, it is a very serious matter. You will know, obviously, from precedent that the misleading of Parliament is something that can potentially carry quite serious sanction. And I think it's something that, certainly in the way forward, we need to look at. It is something that we really have to be sure was conveyed to us properly, the information was conveyed to us properly in June or not, as the case might be. And I certainly think it's something that we can't ignore, because I think the potential, particularly given the very convoluted issues that we're seeing with Eskom, is something we need to be sure that all the agencies and the parties to those agencies investigating Eskom are also, in fact, performing their mandate and informing the committee accordingly when we ask for information, that information is conveyed to us accurately.
Thank you. The hands which were raised before such, if we were to make reference to the Brigadier Burger matter, the correspondence we have copied by the recipient of the letter, which is the Speaker in this instance. We might want to say it is their prerogative to respond to the correspondence, but it has been forwarded to us. That's the correct term. But forwarded to us for us to reflect on it. If we would want to do anything as a result, why can't we then refer the copied correspondence to the legal fraternity in the institution to outline what sort of options are available, looking into the entirety of the contents which are carried into the correspondence. Then at that time, I will be able, advised appropriately, to take appropriate action. So it is probably inclusive of both what you are saying and as well our own intention in as far as the outlook of the correspondence is concerned. That might be a way of looking into such. And then on these other matters which have been stated here, I would allow members as well to make their own reflection around such. I think as well, looking into it, it might be necessary that we as well look into what is implied. I think Advocate Motibi emphasized this point when he was dealing with matters of governance. Emphasized a point which we might want to reflect on. There are very critical institutions which are tailored around matters of security. SOEs, if you look into AMSCO, look into DENEL, and a number of other institutions which carry heavy IP into their own operational mandate. And such need high protection as well. When you're going to find some individuals who are part of these boards who are somewhat exposed into such critical information, or might want to have to strengthen such information, who might think at a particular time, let them engage into some investigations one way or the other. There's a serious threat, not only into the information of such institutions, but a threat to the country one way or the other, of the information that might lie into some of those individuals one way or the other. What is it that we could probably do to safeguard the judicial responsibility of such members who are involved in such institutions as board members? So the point which has been raised by the SIU is a firm point which would need some interrogation, and probably in the way forward would want to propose and find way of dealing with such, because I don't know whether it's defined within some delinquent approach or what, but it needs some kind of a valid litmus paper testing to arrive at a point as to how such kind of behavioral instances are found within such institutions. As you say, some of the things are done with good intent, but the good intent and intention must be based on law. Fortunately, South Africa, its own basis, founding principles, is the Constitution. So in any constitutional state, the firm foundation is law. In that way, we are bound in whatever form that we must abide by that frame in our own zeal to do right in terms of our own performance. And the members might as well want to probably deal with those kinds of areas in terms of affirming our way forward as to how can we at best find such instances. Honorable Hadebe.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Let me deal with the issue of Brigadier Burger before we come to the way forward. I have said it previously that we should take into consideration what he then highlighted to us previously in terms of his reservation and fears. And if we are still adamant that he ought to appear before us, we can have the meeting as a closed session in order for us to be able to receive whatever information that we think is still outstanding. However, Chair, having said that, one also needs to, as a committee now, we need to ask ourselves whether or not is there any information that is still outstanding that we consider relevant for us to conclude our work. I am of the view, having received the intelligence report update and preliminary findings from the Special Investigating Unit and the Hawks, we are on the right track. There are clear demonstration in terms of cases before us that there is work underway. My view and my opinion, Chair, we ought to allow the relevant law enforcement agencies to continue and finalize the work that they are currently doing. Once we have the final findings, recommendations, will then determine our way forward. As things stand, it appears as if SCOPA has done everything within its power, function, and mandate to ensure that we do not sweep anything under carpet when it comes to Eskom shenanigans, corruption, manipulation of systems, and sabotage We have done everything within our mandate. We have exhausted everything that ought to have been done by this committee. We have called all relevant key critical witnesses who have furnished us with information, including the author himself, Mr. Andre de Reiter. He has appeared before us, he has assisted us with information. We do have now the intelligence report in the position of both the Hawks and the SIU. Let them continue with their work. Let them give us quarterly progress report until they reach a stage where they say to us, here is the final report. Beyond that, we cannot duplicate things. Let us not endeavor to become law enforcement agencies. I do not see a need, Chair, given what is before our disposal currently, to still pursue Brigadier Burger. But we need to correct the narrative or the story that was shared by the National Commissioner vis-a-vis what the Brigadier Burger is saying. Lastly, I think the Speaker, she has to also assist us as a presiding officer by responding to Brigadier Burger and giving us a way forward on how to deal with this matter. The local standee of this committee is being questioned. We're told we do not have the right or jurisdiction to interact with Brigadier Burger. Whether that it's true or not, the legal opinion ought to assist us. We need to be informed so that we do not act outside our mandate as it currently being alleged by the Brigadier. We don't want to be seen as interfering with the work of the law enforcement agencies. Ours is not to investigate. We are an oversight body that is entrusted with the responsibility to ensure that public purse is not misused, and any abuse of public purse, we're going to do our oversight duties. And when there are issues that needs to be referred to the law enforcement agencies, those issues will be referred to the relevant authorities. And in this case, we need to do exactly that. We have referred this matter to the SIU. Let them brief us on quarterly basis. And once the final report is before us, they are also considering legal opinion. They are still waiting advices. They are not sure on how to proceed until they get such legal opinion. There are still outstanding issues on their side. So we do not want to rush the issue and then we commit unintended mistakes in the process. That will be my proposal, Chair, to say, I asival mfana. Siyavala for now until such time that we receive those We'll monitor closely the quarterly reports. And I'm not saying them will have to just give us reports. They will come before us on quarterly basis to present those reports. And if there are experiences, challenges in executing their mandate, they will brief us as such. We are going to see this matter to its finality. We still have at least a couple of months to go before the end of the 6th administration. Nature allows no vacuum. Whoever comes after our term will also ensure that they pursue this matter, will present a close-out and a legacy report to ensure that this matter is not swept under carpet. We are not going to leave any stone unturned, Chair, in getting to the bottom and the finality of this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think that your proposal is a good one, because this committee had agreed that we would subpoena Brigadier Burger if he refused to come voluntarily. And so I would suggest that your proposal to ask for Parliamentary Legal Office to give us now a legal opinion on our authority to be able to subpoena him and start that process to subpoena him if that's the legal opinion is that we have the authority to do that. It's part of the process that we're following, and I think it needs to be done. There needs clarity. as Benedicta was saying, is we shouldn't be hiding behind a screen of secrecy or security or that kind of stuff. This is Parliament. This is the People's Parliament. This is where we do things in public. And over my 15-odd years here in this institution, from time to time, we've had to debate that point. And every time, the consequence has been it's public. In my experience, and I know there are some matters which are dealt with in the state security arena, which aren't public, but in every case that I've been involved in, the ruling has been that it must be made public. There hasn't ever in those instances, and I haven't been involved in intelligence services, been a secret or a closed meeting that I've ever been involved in 15 years. So, Mr. Chairman, I would support your proposal. Let's go down that route. Let's get the legal opinion. A, can we subpoena? And in terms of not only the legal position of Parliament to subpoena, if that's the right word, I don't think subpoena is, but the equivalent for Parliament, and can SCOPA do that in this instance? Is it within our mandate? As Honourable Beggy has just been saying, is that there's, where is our mandate and where isn't it? So there are two issues that we need a legal opinion on. First of all, can Parliament subpoena Brigadier Burger in terms of the bigger picture of secrecy and security? And secondly, within Parliament, are we authorised as SCOPA to do it? And then, Mr. Chairman, can I add on to your proposal, the proposal earlier that we get a legal opinion about ensuring that our questions are answered, even when it comes to the naming of people. I think that that's important, not only in this instance, for future such situations. So that's in terms of the Burger position. I think we can find common ground there. In terms of whether this committee should proceed or not proceed with the Eskom matters, in the broader picture, I don't think there's any question that we have to proceed because that's part of our job. The question really is, specifically, I think Honourable Becky is saying, what about the so-called FIVUS or whatever report you want to call it? Do we continue to interrogate that report as regards to Eskom? And perhaps not, but the contents of that report, the malfeasance, financial issues in that report, which the SIU already well advanced on, we can't just stop doing that. So there's a bit of nuance here about, no, we're not going to perhaps talk about the report, but the contents that we're dealing with in terms of our mandate as SCOPA, we don't have any option but to proceed with that. So there's some nuance here, and so in some instances, there is common ground here, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Yeah, there's some form of a mixture in progress, and finding a way of saying those who have legal grounds to deal with those matters must be handled in that form. I think where Honourable Hadebe is coming from is the point which says, which we must be very grateful about, that SCOPA has got into a route. Probably you write a letter to us and then you come to us and make a way forward for us. Is that fair? Yeah, you see what I think we can take from this process is that we have want the proper terminology. We've somewhat began to encourage people to do what they have done currently. Something which we can say proudly that we've been able to say through this whole process. SIU here are the matters. DPCI here are the matters. SAPS here are the matters. Please run with these kind of matters. So we have come back with the report which says, here we are, here is our movement towards those areas. We are satisfied that we're picking up on these issues this way or that way. I think we must appreciate that kind coming from us, that at least we have made that contribution. And here are these legal entities which are carrying in these kinds of areas that we have identified. But what is left from us, we'll have our own meeting. So we'll have our own meeting, they will compile the report, and then we'll assess that report. And based on that report, we'll have that closure in terms of which areas are closed, which areas are opened, and then they stipulate such and table that report to Parliament. But clearly, the SIU, DPCI, towards that movement, they are substantive areas of action, which we must appreciate, and we accept that that work is being done quite proficiently, and we encourage them to continue doing so, because we are not in their shoes. We are parliamentarians. As parliamentarians, we can't venture into the detailed intricacies of what they're somewhat doing. You see, and the question which Honourable Les is venturing into is that the question of names which ought to be dropped during a reporting time, which we must probably narrow it in a way, not to get into the general instance of questions being answered. The issue now is names. It's not necessarily the general answering. You see, specifically whether names could be probably be part of those reports. There'll be no refusal to report, but the point has been that can names be part of such reports, yes or no, and how can those be there? It's not, as I understand it, it's not that names only. While you are investigating, can you throw names of people investigated, that so-and-so is being investigated, so-and-so is being investigated, and so forth? What implications does that carry? So I think that's what he says. We need probably to get some kind of legal opinion on, so I think for certainty, just to concede into that point. So we're happily moving forward on this matter. The Burger matter, Brigadier Burger matter, is going on for legal scrutiny, and we're going to be advised how to handle it. But what is clear is that we're not going to leave the Burger matter. You see, because it's coming in as something to run away from any point of level of scrutiny, and we're not going to leave that. That's why I would want to have an indication whether, if he comes, he should go to whatever platform, but he must come. You see, so Parliament must hold him accountable because he has been cited as being party to a certain action. So we can't leave that unattended. I think we agree, all of us. So we need that kind of advice on the matter. Is it still with the SAPS?
Thanks, Honourable Chair. No, he's on pension, Honourable Chair.
Oh, he's on pension.
Yes, Honourable Chair.
You might hear that he's been employed somewhere else. There's that possibility as well. These people who are following this thing, employed somewhere else, you see. So, okay, fine. I think I
So,
would
Chair,
deal
we're
with that.
pursuing an ordinary member of the public now.
Yeah, we'll deal with it in whatever form. Because in law there are avenues that could be somewhat pursued. So it's no longer part of your command. It doesn't remain part of your command. It's in pension. Okay. No, fine. I think, colleagues, let's accept that we have, through diligent exercise, dealt with the matters, and in the committee meeting, which ought to be convened for the committee to close areas of our own actions on the matters, will be able to do so. But let's thank the SIU, thank the SAPS, and thank DPCI for the work done so far. We wish them one back. Are you aware, General?
That's end of June, Honourable Chair.
End of June.
Correct.
Okay, end of June. End of June. We'll check the correspondence he has sent to the Speaker, how has been captured, whether it's still Brigadier, blah, 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 and all the stuff in terms of his response. Thank you very much to yourselves and your ministries on such. Your cooperation in this piece of work is well appreciated. There were punches thrown, but not physical punches thrown. We just with the interest of justice, so we really appreciate you when we say we have this kind of a meeting. You haven't failed to do so. Thank you very much for such. And as a committee, we still have work to do around such to solidify what Honourable Hadeb has proposed and somewhat agreed, so that we can firmly write a report to Parliament on such instances. The meeting is closed. When Honourable Shangwa, as the chairman, comes back, we'll give him a report that this thing has been closed. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. We'll happily report to him as such. Thank you. The meeting adjourns. Thank you. Banis? Yeah? 8. Oh, sebalik balo am. Ya, sekarang aku pendul. I'm advised there's some pickings at the dining hall. At the dining hall, you're welcome.